talk to you, frequent critics, by the way, of President Trump, particularly on Russia. You asked him about this Washington Post reporting about Senator Jeff Sessions, that he spoke twice, and I just want to tell the viewers, spoke twice with Russia's ambassador to the U.S. and did not disclose that during the confirmation hearing. I want to play part of Graham's response, and then we'll talk, Dana. Here it is.
If there is something there, and it goes up the chain of investigation, it is clear to me that Jeff Sessions, who is my dear friend, cannot make this decision about Trump. So there may be nothing there, but if there's something there that the FBI believes is criminal in nature, then for sure you need a special prosecutor. If that day ever comes, I'll be the first one to say it needs to be somebody other than Jeff.
So, Dana, what happens? How does this play out?
Well, as you just heard him talk about, there's still a big if. As far as we know, the Justice Department haven't gotten far enough to know that they have the there that would take it to that level that Senator Graham was talking about. But that's one issue. The other issue is, why didn't Jeff Sessions talk about this, disclose this during his confirmation hearings? You heard Senator Graham, who's on the Judiciary Committee that oversees and was the first sort of line to approve Jeff Sessions, had the confirmation hearings. He didn't want to go there, understandably, because the story was just breaking as we were on the air and didn't know enough about it. But yeah, there's no question that it is open. I mean, if you kind of think about if the roles were reversed, if Jeff Sessions were still either the chairman of the Judiciary Committee, which he was, or the ranking Republican on the Judiciary Committee, which he was, what would he say about it?
Exactly. And that's fair, because they didn't, the information was just coming out, so you can't expect them to know about it as you were. But Dana, my question is this going to, because, you know, Republicans on the Hill have been saying, well, I've heard that there's no there, and so it should not be investigated. But does this now increase those calls, those cries for an independent, a special prosecutor?
Sure. And Senator Graham said that he didn't use his name, but effectively agrees with Darrell Issa about the need for a special prosecutor if they come to the point inside the Justice Department, the FBI, that there is a there. But I think separate from that, Don, there is no question, and Senators Lindsey Graham and John McCain made abundantly clear today that the investigation, they're going to make sure that the investigations on Capitol Hill, particularly within the Intelligence Committee, are robust. The House, you know, is its own beast, but in the Senate, the Intelligence Committee is stacked in such a way that you have Republicans. Senator McCain is what's called an ex officio member, so he can go on to the committee and be a part of the investigation, maybe even vote if he'd like to. But there are other sitting members, Senator Susan Collins, Senator Marco Rubio, and others. These are Republicans in the majority, party, making sure, they say, that this is going to be robust and be real. And when I say this, it is looking into not just what Russia did to try to meddle in U.S. elections, but also whether or not there were any contacts or, more importantly, collusion between anybody in the Trump campaign and the Russian government. Okay,
Dana, stand by. I want to bring in Margaret and Mark. But first, before I bring you guys in, I want to play. This is what Attorney General Jeff Sessions told Senator Al Franken during his confirmation hearings. This was back in January. Listen to this.
If there is any evidence that anyone affiliated with the Trump campaign communicated with the Russian government in the course of this campaign, what will you do?
Senator Franken, I'm not aware of any of those activities. I have been called a surrogate at a time or two in that campaign, and I did not have communications with the Russians, and I'm unable to comment on it.
Very well. Without divulging sensitive information, do you know about this or know what compromising personal and financial information the Russians claim to have?
Senator Franken, allegations get made about candidates all the time, and they've been made about President-elect Trump lots of times. Most of them, virtually all of them, have been proven to be exaggerated or untrue. I would just say to you that I have no information about this matter. I have not been in on the classified briefings, and I'm not a member of the Intelligence Committee. So I'm just not able to give you any comment on it at this time.
So, Margaret, you've heard that. As a Republican consultant, first of all, what are your thoughts on this? Is this bad?
Optically, it's terrible. I mean, what's so interesting is the story is just breaking. So if we're going to be really generous, and as a Republican, I like Jeff Sessions. I'm glad we have a Republican administration office. It is really strange and troubling that two senior administration officials have had now proven contacts with senior Russian officials and lied about it and hid it. Right? So what's concerning to me as a Republican supporter of this administration is not necessarily the crime, but the cover-up, right? It's why has Jeff Sessions in his confirmation hearings not being truthful with Al Franken, especially at a time when all of the background discussion, the backdrop in the discourse against those hearings was Russian intervention in U.S. elections. So it's not like it wouldn't have just occurred to him, or he would have completely forgotten that he met with the Russian ambassador in the United States. And by the way, to say this is because of his capacity as a senator in the Armed Services Committee, certainly you can say that. But then why did no other member of the Armed Services Committee meet with the Russian ambassador?
But if you're meeting with a Russian ambassador, I mean, come on, we meet people all the time, and I'm sure that but if you meet an ambassador and someone who is a spy, whether you know they're a spy or not, or consider that, wouldn't you kind of remember?
Well, that's not I mean, it's not. Look, we don't. Whether he's a spy or not, Jeff Sessions.
If you meet with a
member
Russian ambassador,
wouldn't you senior member of the? I believe it is very typical for him to meet with many ambassadors, many people all the time. But certainly, it's not like you're meeting with the UK ambassador, right? We have sanctions against Russia right now. We are in an escalating sort of 2.0 Cold War scenario with Russia right now. So meeting with Russia is, yes, Don, I think one would remember it.
Mark Preston. So Dana says, and I think that the common wisdom is that the calls are going to increase for an independent investigation here, an investigative committee. So Jeff Sessions is going to be in on all of the information. He oversees the Justice Department and the FBI. Is it going to be incumbent upon him now to recuse himself from an investigation?
I think Republicans would be smart to try to get him to recuse himself, only to protect themselves, because at some point they're going to have to step away from this and no longer be defending Jeff Sessions. Now, we don't know what was said, and the meetings could have been fine, and it was just, they could have been talking about anything, right? We don't know, and that's where the investigation has to go.
But it could be innocent, but I mean, to Margaret's point is like, if you don't, why not just say that you met with them? Listen, they could have not, they could have talked about nothing, who knows? But still, to Margaret's point and to other folks, they did have those meetings, and to say you didn't meet with someone is just factually not true. But go on, Mark.
No. And in fact, I was getting that because I actually agree with you. Contextually, the timing and the fact that it was on multiple occasions, meeting with the Russian ambassador at a time when there was concern about Russia having influenced our election. In fact, John McCain just said tonight, Don, have no doubt what the Russians try to do to our election could have destroyed democracy. I mean, that's a pretty heavy statement coming from somebody like John McCain regarding a nation that we think may have tried to influence our elections here. So having our Attorney General right now, having met with them during the campaign, optically it looks bad, but I do think that Republicans at some point are going to have to try to push this off their plate and let the investigation go where it needs to go.
What is the impact here, Dana, on what Evan's reporting, what the Washington Post is reporting of these meetings taking place in the sidelines at the Republican convention? What's the impact?
It's honestly, at this point, it looks like it has the potential to be a game changer in that it's going to be pretty hard to see how Jeff Sessions doesn't recuse himself at the very least. Special prosecutor is, potentially down the road. But in the short term, the question now, as we're hearing more about this, is should he recuse himself? Mm-hmm. And the calls are likely to come. And it's one thing to come from Democrats, but it's quite possible, even probable, we're going to hear from more Republicans to do it for the reason that Mark just said, to protect themselves, to protect the integrity of whatever investigation is going on, so that at the end of the day, they don't have people saying, oh, no, it wasn't real, because you have the chief law enforcement officer, the head of the Justice Department, who was potentially compromised.
Margaret, I know you want to get in, but I need to report this. Representative Elijah Cummings calling on Jeff Sessions to resign at this moment. What's your response?
I mean, look, it's a bit early. You would expect that of Elijah Cummings. I mean, he's a partisan Democrat, and I think, partisan Republicans often react very strongly when Democrats do things. Look, the problem, I think Dan is right. The issue here is about recusal first and foremost, because you can't have the head of the Department of Justice that oversees the department that is in charge of investigating domestic espionage somehow have met with a top Russian spy twice during the campaign when we know that that government was trying to intervene in U.S. elections. So simply for optical reasons, but then also for political and pragmatic reasons, the recusal is sort of the bare minimum that's necessary.
We have to remember, Mark, that Loretta Lynch recused herself from any decisions regarding Hillary Clinton because of that meeting of Hillary Clinton and Loretta Lynch, who was Attorney General at the time, on the tarmac.
Absolutely. But, Don, there's a possibility that Donald Trump may go to Jeff Sessions, President Trump may go to Jeff Sessions and say, I want you to stay where you're at. You're not going to get pushed out. Let's not forget that one of Donald Trump's top aides was a top aide to Jeff Sessions. And, somebody who is close by his side, somebody who is influencing his policies. So we may see that. So I'm not sure we're going to see something happen in the next 24, 48 hours. But we'll see if at some point the pressure gets so high that, in fact, Jeff Sessions has to.
Can I just
quickly, Dan, because we'll come back, but quickly, do you?
Okay, just really fast. Loretta Lynch, she did say that she wouldn't be involved in these decisions, but she didn't completely remove herself from the investigation, which could be an example of why they potentially need to do it differently this time.
Yeah, I may have misspoken. I meant Bill Clinton on the tarmac. I'm not sure exactly.
No, you're
what I
right.
said.
No, you were absolutely right.
So listen, I thank you very much. Stand by, everyone. Again, our breaking news tonight is that we're reporting tonight that the Attorney General, Jeff Sessions, when he was still a senator and an advisor to the Trump campaign, had meetings with Russia's ambassador to the U.S. but did not disclose them during his confirmation hearing.